Hey everybody, I'm Sam. I am a student of the Bible. I've been a pastor for 22 years and I'm a writer, and my training involves biblical studies, theology, and biblical languages. I've been fascinated to watch responses to my YouTube videos on, especially on Genesis. Some of the responses, some of the comments appear not to know what I'm doing with Genesis. Uh, because I have a unique framework that I'm trying to use. And so I thought I'd make a video just to kind of help everyone understand what framework am I actually using when I am discussing this book of Genesis. And actually, the videos that are on YouTube here are actually supplemental to my blog posts. So on my blog, I'm writing through Genesis, and it's way more detailed, way more. I go way more in depth than I do here on these videos. These videos actually started out as as supplements to what I was already writing. Because some people who are reading what I was writing were like, "Oh, you should do a podcast, or you should do videos on some of this stuff." To help explain it a little bit better, because reading sometimes takes a whole long time and videos are easier. So I started doing some supplemental stuff with these videos, and then it just turned into, whatever. What I'm doing on my blog is I'm actually working my way through, and I think I have like 15, 16, 17, somewhere around there, posts already in, and they're really long form writing. And the goal of that was to get all the way through Genesis chapter 11, and then condense them all down into one critical commentary, get it peer reviewed, and then put it in the public domain. So that was kind of the goal of writing and doing all that kind of stuff. And then I started doing these videos, and then I watched the comment section start blowing up, and it's like, wait a second. I'm answering a lot of questions in the comment section that would have been helpful if you would have been on my blog and read through my framework of how I'm doing this, and what my assumptions are, what I'm trying to do, what I'm not trying to do, what my guiding principles are for interpretation, all that. So that's what this video is going to be about. Okay, I'm going to go back through. I'm actually going to read some of the stuff that I wrote from my introduction and of this whole critical commentary, and from my guiding frameworks and background information, so you can get a sense of where I'm coming from, what I'm trying to do with these videos, so that we don't get into these really long discussions in the comment sections of like, well, what about this, and apologetics this, and whatever. So here goes. This is what I wrote. I actually wrote about like my fascination with Genesis when I was young. I grew up in a small Christian school in California. We were taught one very specific way about the Bible, very specific way about Genesis. Then I ended up going to school, wanting to be a pastor. I went to my undergrad and I studied a certain way, and then got into grad school, that kind of stuff. Started studying higher education level Genesis, and started challenging a lot of my assumptions, a lot of my thoughts from growing up and what I was being fed. And why it was that way. And I can go into more detail later on, but you can go and read on my blog if you want to read all of that. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to go through a journey of the beginning pages of Genesis to see the beauty and the wonder and the life-transforming power of this original story of the Hebrew Bible in a different kind of a way. And so my disclaimer on my blog, and ultimately in my book, is this. I'm just going to read the disclaimer, okay? During this study, I will not make it my aim to bend the text to my presuppositions. It's not my goal to try and put forth a position on whether Genesis is literal history or poetry or allegory. It's also not my aim to read my theological positions into the text to make it say something that it didn't originally say. It is my aim, however, to write a balance and to do on these videos a balanced approach of accurate biblical scholarship and rabbinical and ecclesiastical interpretation. I'm going to note where scholarship and rabbinical and church interpretation differ in opinion, for the sole purpose of giving us a more robust approach to the text and a full framework to work with to appreciate this amazing book of Genesis and the literary genius work of art that it is. And so here's what I will say. As I do these videos, I'm not trying to convince anybody of anything, okay? I'm not trying, if you're an atheist, I'm not trying to convince you to try to believe in God, whatever. Here's all I'm trying to do. for those who want to read the Bible, who want to read the book of Genesis, the opening 11 chapters, I just want to give us a good framework to read through, a robust discussion about what these could be, what the scholarship is, what the rabbinical ideas are, what the ecclesiastical or church ideas would have been, and kind of put that all in the mix together and talk about where they differ and why they differ. And so to give us a better framework for how we can read the Bible. And here's why. I started watching on TikTok and on YouTube just videos of people who were doing Bible stuff, and you would just see all kinds of crazy stuff going on. And there were all kinds of just terrible takes on the Bible, just really awful takes. Like if they were to go into seminary with some of these, they would fail over and over again. And so I thought, man, these people are putting this stuff out there, and people are watching this stuff and buying into it, especially here in the United States. And so I said, okay, I want to come on and put some videos out there, write some stuff that would really be helpful for people as they navigate. Because a lot of times biblical scholarship isn't exactly accessible to everybody. And sometimes even the church stuff, the way that we word things is really kind of not really great. And so I wanted to offer just a kind of more balanced, bigger, more robust approach to this whole thing. But I have a guiding framework that I'm using. Okay. And so that's my introductory statements, my disclaimer about what I'm trying to do, what I'm not trying to do. But I have a guiding framework, and I talk about interpretive issues in the first few blog posts, and then in my commentary, I talk about some interpretive issues. And one of the biggest interpretive issues is that I read about that we are far removed from the world that these texts were written in and written to. And so I'm an American citizen who happens to be alive at the end of the 20th century, beginning of 21st century CE. And there's a whole lot baked into that last sentence I just said, right? That puts me at an advantage and a disadvantage. The advantage is that I have at my fingertips the ability to look up anything I need to, right? I can have data, latest scholarship, etc. And all that is because of the advancement of modern technology. So that it puts me at an advantage. A disadvantage, though, however, is that my world, my thought processes, my understanding of how things work in this world, my language, they are nothing like the audience or the writers of these texts. And so my task then is that I've got to immerse myself in the world that they live in, the understandings, the languages of the ancient Southwestern Asia area, and I have to discover how they thought, how they lived, how they wrote, what they believed, that will help give me more accurate data points and understanding of these historical contexts in which these texts were written in. And so that's a big disadvantage that we're at, and it's an interpretive issue that we have to try to figure out. And so there's a lot baked into that that's just not really in the text so far. And there's also another thing that we have to take into account is what time period are we talking about? And so the time period for ancient Southwest Asia that we're talking about is this probably 3,500 BCE right up to like the Common Era. A lot more of it is like 3,500 BCE to about 300, okay, or so, or the time of the Sumerians all the way up to the beginning of the Greek Empire. Okay, so that's a lot of what we're talking about when we talk about the ancient Near East or ancient Southwest Asia, some have called it. There's also a language barrier because a lot of these texts were written in, especially the Bible, Hebrew Bible, written in Hebrew. Later on, they're written in a little bit, like a couple sentences here and there of Aramaic, and a lot of us don't speak those languages, and so it's really hard to interpret and navigate those, and so we have to get through those. And there's also, I wrote in my posts here, there's some guidelines for interpreting ancient Southwest Asian texts that we have to be aware of. And so these are the 5 guidelines that I use as I interpret these texts that kind of help me keep within, a certain playground, okay? The first one is that ancient Southwest Asian writers valued theological supremacy over historical accuracy. And this is something that happens all throughout, not just in the Hebrew Bible, but all throughout. It's that they prop up their theological supremacy, that they seem to be more concerned about what is theological in nature and writing than what is historical and factual. Okay, so you're going to see that over and over and over again. You have to know that that is a framework. That is a thing that's in the background of how they write. And so you'll see it in Sumerian writing, you see it in Babylonian writing, you see it in Jewish writing. You just see this over and over again. Also, in ancient Southwest Asian civilizations viewed history as circular, not linear. It's been well attested that that the way they viewed history was cyclical. It was very much like it's going to repeat itself over and over and over again. They didn't really see it as in like this straight line like we do nowadays. The third framework and guideline into how to interpret is that ancient Southwestern Asian history is littered with nationalistic propaganda. And the Hebrew Bible is no different. I mean, all throughout the pages, once you see it, you can't unsee it. Like, there's all kinds of nationalistic propaganda woven into it that props up Israel against all of the other nations around it. And it makes Israel look a certain way, even if that really wasn't the historically accurate thing that was going on. And so you just have to know that that is baked into the text as you read it, because that's the way it was with all of these places. Like, a lot of times minimizing losses and things and maximizing wins, and they would exaggerate numbers for propaganda purposes and all this kind of stuff. And so we have to know some of that as we that's a part of reading this kind of literature from that time period, so that we can understand what's going on there. Number 4 is that ancient Southwestern Asian texts famously used myth and legends to communicate truth in their historical narratives. And so you're going to find baked into historical things, mythic things, and legendary things, and all that. And sometimes it's really hard to pull some of that apart to go, what is history? What is myth? What's legend? It's all kind of woven in there together. And sometimes you can go, okay, let's look at archaeological data points to find history. This seems to be mythic because it all looks mythic. This seems to be legendary. And so we have to know that a lot of that's going to be baked into the literature from this time period. And so we can probably expect that it might also be found in the Hebrew text. So that just is also a guiding framework we need to understand. And then number 5, ancient Southwestern Asian civilizations viewed the earth and the cosmos very differently than we do. They viewed it very differently than we do. They have a very different picture of what they thought about what this earth was like, what the heavens were like, all of that kind of stuff. And so not understanding that, if we take our understanding of what we think about today and what we've discovered today and try to impose that upon the text, it isn't going to work, because we won't see what they're trying to communicate. We have to go backwards in time, get into their minds, get into their culture, and see what is it that they were trying to communicate about their world to us. And so those are my guardrails as I read this text and I interpret this text, and as I try to bring out what's really there. I'm not trying to read my theology into it. I'm not trying to make it say something that it maybe wouldn't have originally said, but I am trying to look at this from the standpoint of what was originally there to its original audience, and what were they originally thinking, and what were their thought processes, and how do they view the world around them. And from there, then we can kind of go and talking about interpretive issues. So hopefully that's helpful as you have been watching these videos, and you can maybe go back and watch them and you go, oh, that's why he's doing that. That's why he's saying that. That's why we're talking about these two different things, because he's talking about the biblical scholarship versus the traditional view here, and why does he bring up both of those, and which one's right and accurate? I'm trying to give you the whole big rounded picture so that we can have a more robust conversation about this, what I think is an amazing text, not just because I view it as, some kind of inspired text, but also because it's just an awesome piece of literature in one of the most influential books that's ever been written. And so hopefully that helps. All right. Have a great day. Give me a thumbs up if you liked the video, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.